Have you ever met someone who seemed incredibly kind at first? They smiled often, offered help, and treated you with unusual warmth. But later, something felt strange. Their kindness only appeared when they needed something. The truth is, not every act of kindness is genuine. Sometimes, people pretend to be nice because it gives them access, influence, or control. In this video, we're going to explore the hidden psychology behind fake niceness, and why some people use kindness not as compassion, but as a strategy. Fake niceness is not genuine kindness, it's a carefully constructed mask. On the surface, the person seems warm, generous, and thoughtful. They smile, offer help, and compliment you, making you feel seen and valued. But underneath, their behavior is strategic. Every action is calculated to gain access, influence, or control. Psychologists note that fake niceness often emerges in people who understand social cues deeply. They study how trust works, how empathy motivates behavior, and how approval can be leveraged. Instead of being motivated by compassion, they use kindness as a tool, a way to lower your defenses and increase your dependency. Signs of fake niceness can be subtle. It often appears when they want something, disappears when you set boundaries, and sometimes carries subtle pressure, guilt, obligation, or manipulation. The effect is disorienting. At first, you feel comfort and connection. Gradually, you notice inconsistencies. Small favors are tied to expectations. Compliments are paired with hidden demands. Emotional attachment is encouraged only when it serves them. Understanding fake niceness is crucial. Recognizing that kindness can be a strategy, not always genuine, gives you the awareness to protect your emotions, maintain boundaries, and avoid being quietly controlled by someone who smiles while hiding ulterior motives. To understand why people pretend to be nice, you first have to understand something fundamental about human psychology. Humans are social creatures. Our survival has always depended on cooperation, acceptance, and reputation within a group. Because of this, the human brain is extremely sensitive to how others perceive us. Being seen as kind, helpful, and trustworthy creates social advantages. People are more likely to support you, listen to you, and offer opportunities when they believe you have good intentions. In many situations, appearing nice can open doors that direct force or honesty cannot. But this social advantage can also be exploited. Some individuals realize that kindness creates trust. And once trust is established, influence becomes much easier. Instead of confronting people directly or demanding things aggressively, they use friendliness as a strategic tool. A warm smile, supportive words, and helpful gestures can lower another person's defenses. When someone feels safe around you, they are less likely to question your motives. Psychologically, this behavior is often connected to self-interest. People may pretend to be nice because they want access to resources, social approval, or personal advantage. In professional environments, this might mean building connections for career benefits. In personal relationships, it might mean maintaining emotional control or securing loyalty. Another reason lies in reputation management. Humans naturally try to protect their social image. Even people with selfish intentions often understand that openly manipulative behavior damages their reputation. So instead, they maintain a mask of kindness while quietly pursuing their own interests. This does not mean every kind person has hidden motives. Genuine kindness certainly exists. However, psychology shows that social behavior can sometimes be strategic. When kindness becomes a calculated method for gaining influence rather than expressing empathy, it transforms from a positive trait into a subtle form of manipulation. When someone consistently appears kind, supportive, and agreeable, it is easy to assume their intentions are genuine. Kindness is one of the most trusted social signals in human interaction. But in some situations, that signal can be deliberately manufactured. Fake niceness often hides specific motives. One common motive is access. When a person presents themselves as friendly and helpful, they are more likely to be welcomed into social circles, workplaces, or personal relationships. People naturally lower their guard around someone who appears harmless and supportive. Once that access is gained, influence becomes easier. Another motive is control. Open dominance or aggression often creates resistance. But kindness can bypass that resistance. If someone builds an image of being generous and understanding, it becomes difficult for others to question them without feeling unfair or ungrateful. This creates subtle psychological leverage. The manipulator does not need to force anything directly. Social pressure does the work for them. A third motive involves reputation management. Humans care deeply about how they are perceived by others. Even individuals with selfish or manipulative intentions usually understand that openly exploitative behavior damages their image. Maintaining a mask of kindness protects their reputation while they quietly pursue personal advantages behind the scenes. Sometimes fake niceness is also linked to strategic reciprocity. When someone repeatedly offers favors, compliments, or emotional support, it can create a sense of obligation. The other person begins to feel that they should return the kindness in some way. Over time, this feeling of indebtedness can be used to influence decisions, gain loyalty, or request favors that might otherwise be refused. It is important to understand that none of these motives always appear immediately. Fake niceness often works because it develops gradually. The person builds trust over time. They appear supportive, attentive, and cooperative. Only later do the hidden expectations or subtle pressures begin to emerge. This does not mean that kindness itself is suspicious. Genuine compassion exists and is essential for healthy relationships. But psychology shows that kindness can sometimes be used as a strategic social tool. When friendliness consistently appears only when something is needed, or disappears when boundaries are set, it may no longer be kindness. It may be calculation. Manipulation rarely begins with obvious control. In most cases, it starts with subtle strategy. The person does not immediately demand power or influence. Instead, they begin by shaping how others perceive them. The first stage is impression building. The manipulator presents themselves as friendly, supportive, and unusually considerate. They listen carefully, offer help, and appear emotionally available. This stage is designed to create trust. When people feel understood and appreciated, they naturally lower their psychological defenses. Once trust is established, the second stage begins: emotional investment. The manipulator encourages the other person to share personal thoughts, insecurities, and experiences. They respond with empathy and reassurance, strengthening the feeling of connection. At this point, the relationship starts to feel meaningful and safe. The third stage involves subtle influence. Instead of giving direct orders or requests, the manipulator introduces small expectations. These might appear as minor favors, emotional support, or decisions that seem harmless at first. Because the relationship already feels positive, these requests are often accepted without much resistance. Gradually, the pattern becomes stronger. The manipulator begins linking their approval or emotional warmth to compliance. When their requests are accepted, they remain kind and supportive. When their expectations are challenged, they may become distant, disappointed, or subtly critical. This creates a psychological association between obedience and emotional reward. Over time, this conditioning becomes powerful. The manipulated person may start adjusting their behavior automatically, trying to maintain harmony and avoid tension. They may not even realize that their decisions are being shaped by someone else's strategy. Another important element of manipulation is deniability. Skilled manipulators rarely express their intentions directly. If questioned, they can easily claim that they were only trying to help, support, or maintain the relationship. Because their behavior appears polite on the surface, it becomes difficult to prove the underlying motive. This is why manipulation can be difficult to recognize while it is happening. It operates through gradual influence rather than sudden force. The strategy works by shaping emotions, expectations, and perceptions over time. But once you understand the pattern, the strategy becomes easier to see. And awareness is the first step in breaking its influence. Recognizing fake niceness is not always easy. People who use this behavior often understand social dynamics very well. They know how kindness is supposed to look, sound, and feel. Because of that, their actions can appear convincing at first. However, over time, certain patterns usually begin to appear. One common sign is inconsistency. A person may be extremely friendly when they need something, but distant or uninterested when they do not. Their kindness seems to turn on and off depending on the situation. Genuine kindness tends to be stable, while strategic kindness often appears only when it serves a purpose. Another sign is subtle pressure hidden inside polite behavior. The person may offer help, favors, or compliments, but these actions later come with expectations. You might notice statements that indirectly remind you of what they have done for you. This can create a quiet sense of obligation, making it harder to refuse their requests. Fake niceness can also appear through exaggerated agreement. The person may constantly agree with your opinions, avoid disagreement, and present themselves as extremely supportive. At first this may feel comforting, but over time it can seem unnatural. Healthy relationships allow honest differences, while strategic friendliness often avoids conflict to maintain influence. Attention patterns can also reveal the behavior. When someone is pretending to be nice, their interest often fades when they no longer benefit from the interaction. Communication becomes shorter, responses become slower, and the warmth that once seemed genuine gradually disappears. Perhaps the most telling sign is how the person reacts when you set boundaries. Genuine kindness respects limits. Someone who was only pretending to be nice may suddenly become distant, disappointed, or subtly critical when their expectations are not met. Over time, these patterns create a clearer picture. Fake niceness rarely reveals itself through a single moment. Instead, it becomes visible through repeated behaviors that slowly expose the difference between genuine care and strategic friendliness. Understanding fake niceness is important, but recognizing it is only the first step. The real protection comes from changing how you respond to these behaviors. The first strategy is awareness. When someone appears unusually agreeable, helpful, or supportive all the time, pay attention to patterns rather than isolated moments. Genuine kindness tends to remain consistent, while strategic friendliness often appears only when the person needs something. The second strategy is slowing down your reactions. Manipulative behavior often relies on quick emotional responses. If you feel pressured to agree, give favors, or make decisions immediately, pause and take time to think. Creating space between the request and your response reduces the manipulator's influence. Another important step is asking direct questions. If someone's behavior feels confusing or inconsistent, calmly asking for clarification can reveal a lot. Manipulative individuals often rely on ambiguity. Clear questions remove that advantage. Maintaining boundaries is also essential. Healthy relationships respect personal limits. If someone reacts negatively when you say no or set boundaries, that reaction itself provides valuable information about their intentions. Finally, trust your observations. If someone's kindness repeatedly feels conditional, pressured, or strategic, it may not be genuine. Protecting yourself is not about becoming suspicious of everyone. It is about recognizing patterns, staying calm, and making decisions that prioritize your own clarity and well-being. Understanding fake niceness is not about becoming suspicious of everyone. It is about becoming aware of patterns that influence your decisions. When you recognize how manipulation works, you gain the ability to respond with clarity rather than pressure. Genuine kindness respects your boundaries and does not demand control. The more you observe behavior over time, the easier it becomes to distinguish sincerity from strategy, and to protect your independence.